To lead off Samsung's 2025 QLED lineup, you have the Q7F. This is going to be a fringe entry-level TV that is packed with a lot of features. It's going to be a step up from the 8000 Crystal series and a step down from the Q8F. Now the Q8F, it is capable of 120 Hz at certain sizes, while the Q7F is going to be 60 Hz. At this price range, a common reoccurrence is that you'll see that the TVs only really have 3 HDMI ports, and if you could find one with a little bit more, well, that's pretty good value. That's not going to be the case here with the Q7F, as it does only have 3 HDMI ports, and of course they are only HDMI 2.0, as this TV is only 60 Hz refresh rate. One thing that the Q7F has going for it though is going to be the size availability, with sizes ranging from 43 inches all the way up to 85 inches. And of course you have all the basic things like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity. Speaking of connectivity, let's talk about the smart TV features, because the Tizen OS is going to be a really good feature point of this TV. Redone for 2025, Samsung Q7F features the new Tizen One UI system. This is going to be a brand new redesign off of what they have had in the past. It's definitely faster than it was before. You have a noticeably snappy performance when it comes down to navigating the menu systems, and the new menu systems are located on the left corner of the screen, which is going to be out of the way of the actual picture, so it makes adjusting the picture a lot easier than it has been in the past. Another thing you'll find within Tizen that you won't find on other TVs really in this price bracket is going to be the Samsung Game Hub. This is going to allow you to play games on your TV without the use of a console. It uses cloud gaming, and it's actually a pretty intuitive feature that you just plug in your favorite controller with the connectivity of Bluetooth, and then you can play games via the cloud gaming services. I made a separate video about the Tizen UI if you want to learn more about what is all available through this, so definitely check that video out. But as we're on the topic of gaming, let's talk about gaming on this TV. But first, I need to be transparent with you guys and let you know that this is an independent review. Every review that you find on this channel will be entirely my opinion and my opinion alone. You cannot buy my words, and even if companies send me a review sample, that 100% will not impact the review, I can promise you that. And anytime something is sent to me, that information will be clear and present. But the reality is, review samples are not easy to come by. For this review, I did go out and buy this TV myself, and if you want to help support the channel so that we could do this more in the future, please consider buying your next TV through one of my affiliate links in the description below when you're ready to buy your TV. Thank you guys so much for your support. Now let's talk about gaming on the Q7F. Gaming was actually pleasantly surprising on this TV because I had a pretty good experience overall. Now granted, you do not have as much here as you do with more premium TVs, and I have to be very clear on that. So some of the things you'd be missing from going with a higher up TV is going to be the ability to do 120 Hz or even a higher refresh rate. This is only going to be limited to 60 Hz refresh rate. If you have a console that is only capped at 60 Hz, it's not going to be a big deal to you, but some of the consoles like the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 can go up to 120 Hz, and if you have a gaming PC, it could go past that. So maybe look for a different TV if you own one of those consoles and you want to utilize those frame rates. I also want to caution you with the HDR on this TV for gaming, and not just gaming, but HDR in general. It's going to be a less pleasant experience than any other TV in the higher end range, and I'll explain that a little bit later once we get to the actual picture quality. But I would stick to SDR gaming for sure on this TV, and that's what I did when I tested out a few of these games. I did try a little bit of HDR as well, and while it did work, it was a kind of darker experience that I think a lot of people won't like as much, and you're going to want a premium TV if you want to go HDR. I mentioned that the Q7F has a lot of features, and this is the case in game mode as well. You have a fully functional game bar here from Samsung, and this is going to be pretty much the same thing across the board from every model that you buy from Samsung. This isn't really missing any features. You do have access to something like Game Motion Plus, which is motion interpolation for gaming at a reduced input lag. And speaking of low input lag, this TV definitely has that. At 4K, you're looking at about 10 milliseconds of input lag. So all in all, for what the TV is, the game mode actually is a pretty good experience. Now let's talk about picture quality. If you buy the Q7F, one of the first things you'll notice is that the color really is coming alive on this TV. It's a really nice, colorful TV. After all, you're buying this TV because it is a QLED, and you're not really going to be disappointed with the quantum dot color on this TV. I wanted to point that out because there is TVs that say they're quantum dot, but they're not actually quantum dot. Staying on the topic of color, you have a lot of flexibility with your color in this TV. Not only do you have the regular color control that is on the basic settings, but you also have color booster, and this is going to exaggerate the colors in a much less destructive way than it did in the past, and it does so by using some sort of AI, and it does a really good job to bring the colors out. I highly recommend trying this feature if you are going to buy this TV. Now, everything that I'm talking about with color is definitely dependent on where you're sitting in the room. If you're sitting straight on, you'll have a pretty nice experience. But since the Q7F is a VA panel, you're looking at bad viewing angles when you're talking about sitting off angle. You lose a lot of that color and you lose any kind of contrast that the TV had. And while we're on the topic of contrast, this is not going to be a contrast-rich TV. Although not bad for an edge-lit TV and at times can make things look a little bit black, it still is going to give you the lifted black look at times on really challenging scenes. Although you don't have blooming like you do with some of the cheaper full array local dimming, you just have a little bit lifted blacks. But with that said, the contrast can at times appear pretty decent for what it is. Remember, this is an edge-lit TV, so hoping for really great contrast out of an edge-lit TV, it's just not one of the strengths of the TV technology in general. Which brings me to another thing with this TV, and that's brightness. This TV doesn't get very bright. Remember, it is an entry-level TV, and it's hard to find TVs that are going to be very bright in the first place. And most of the TVs in this price range probably suffer from the same sort of fate. HDR is just going to be a very tough task when you have low brightness on a TV. And that's very evident on this TV. When trying to watch HDR, you're met with a pretty weak experience, to be honest with you. Sometimes you see highlights are just blown out completely, or things just do not look right. The HDR in this TV can appear broken. If you use advanced, you're going to have a better experience with this TV, but it will be at the expense of a darker picture, and this is going to be a turnoff for some people. So I can't say this enough with this TV. I would avoid HDR at all costs and go with SDR when you're talking about watching the Q7F. Quickly, I want to talk about the sound quality of this TV, and then I'll move on to the competition. Now, the sound quality of this TV is pretty okay. It's definitely not going to win any rewards for its sound quality, but the dialogue is decent and you can get away with this TV. A lot of people are going to highly recommend you just add a soundbar to a TV like this, but seeing as the price bracket that this TV sits in, I'm going to say that if you have money for a soundbar plus this TV, maybe just buy a better TV instead of going that route. Because as you go up in value with TVs, the sound quality does get better, and that has been a proven fact. And as you go up in value, you also get a brighter TV, which means you get a better HDR experience. But I think now we have to talk about the competition that's out there that surrounds this TV, and whether or not this TV is going to be worth it over the competition. You're facing a pretty interesting dilemma. While this TV does offer a lot of features for the price, and that's probably going to be the biggest selling point that I have for this TV, I do think that you're going to get better TV technology from the money from other brands. When you're looking at Samsung, LG, and Sony within this price bracket, you're usually just kind of buying off of brand recognition and features, but you're not necessarily getting the best bang for your buck in terms of the TV technology. Although I do want to stress that it's not perfect. TCL and Hisense, they make really good TVs at the lower end, and they offer the best bang for your buck. While I do think they offer better TV technology for the money, I do find that they're lacking in some areas that are really important, like processing and motion. I tend to have a lot of problems with those TVs over the big three when you're talking about those specific areas. So I'd say this price bracket is more like pick your poison. And as we say with TVs, there is no real perfect TV. And that's certainly the case here with the Q7F. So here's my final verdict on this TV. The Q7F is a bit of a misleading TV. At first you think that it's going to be an upgraded version of the Q70D, but then you see that it's really just the Q60D, but the upgraded version of that. For the price, I think this TV offers pretty okay color, but a lot of features to go along with the TV. Not a bad TV if you're looking for a kid's TV, a bedroom TV, or just a TV to get by in the short term. And it's definitely not a TV I could recommend for watching a lot of movies on, especially since HDR on this TV is very lacking. If you're somebody who really doesn't watch HDR that much, you watch a lot of cable TV, and a lot of what you're watching is going to be TV shows that are mostly in SDR, I think then this TV can be a pretty good experience for you overall. So with all that said, my final verdict for this TV is a 6 out of 10. If you have any questions at all regarding this TV or any other TVs, regardless of what price bracket you're in, leave those questions in the comment section below. I will answer them. If you guys want to keep watching TV reviews, check out this one right here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next one.